Guys, you keep doing this and I have to say something. I absolutely have to. I can't not say something, right? I have to shout out two very special people. The first of which being Cat Lover 4700. I have to shout Cat Lover 4700 out for the $10 super thanks. Says always appreciate your hard work and thank you for providing these very revealing interviews. I have to say thank you. And secondly, but not least at all, I have to shout out Carrie Serrano 9818 again. Carrie came through again with a donation of $1.99. And look, I'm always floored and flabbergasted by the thanks and the support that you all give me, even just coming in and watching videos. So once again, thank you to Cat Lover and thank you to Carrie for supporting. And let's get to the video. Thanks a lot. Okay, I think several of you have actually asked for this. This is JonBenet, Leeza Gibbons, 98 talk show or something like that with Dr. Andrew Hodges. I hope this is what you're asking for. I don't know. If not, I'll keep looking. But this was posted by Cotton Star Manifesto. So again, I'll say it again. Go view his channel. But anyways, here goes.
Things are changing. Some of the walls seem to be tumbling down around the Ramseys. Many of their longtime supporters have changed their minds. When we come back, we'll talk to a former employee for the Ramseys who was close to the family at one time, is now convinced of their guilt. And we'll talk to one of Patsy's former teachers who still supports this family. We'll ask her who she believes killed JonBenet. Right after this. Inquirer has been talking about the latest clues and developments in this case. And Pam, I asked you how your sister felt about the coverage. You have some strong feelings about Mike Walker, do you not?
Oh, that's where this came from. Okay, I knew I had heard Pam on on a phone just like going at somebody, but I didn't know it came from this. Okay, that's where it came from.
Well, certainly not personally. I've never met the gentleman, but I would like to make a blanket statement about really all of the coverage that has happened. And that would be that I find it hard to believe that reputable journalists who are professionally trained and schooled in this country fail to find critical and substantive facts in this case and report on that. Instead, what I know to be true is so oftentimes a piece or a corner of the table is pulled off and then an entire story woven around that, and the facts are just not true.
Well, the 911 call being digitally enhanced has been verified.
Well, that I cannot speak to. I was not there, but neither was the gentleman from...
Oh man, that smirk says it all. Look, if you're going to start talking about the facts of the case, and I bring to you a fact of the case, look, if you're going to get on the call talking all this hot smoke and I hit you with a response, then you got to come on with it. That's what it is. Like if you say, oh man, you guys look at her corner, but I know journalism because my sister is a journalism major and all of the stuff that you guys go through. Now my sister, she's reputable. You can trust her, but you guys can't trust anything about what you guys are reporting. It's just all the experience that you guys come with, and how dare you guys would come with all this. This is just this asinine. Okay. And everybody's being patient. We're just listening. And then right out the gate, well, the 911, I haven't even said anything about the call. I just said, well, the 911 call is digitally enhanced, and boom, you cut me off already. I haven't even said what I was going to say. I haven't even said anything. Well, I don't know nothing about that because I wasn't there. We're not talking about who was and wasn't there. I'm just talking about what I heard on the call. Let's talk about that. Let's get to the case. See, you guys like to cut people off before we get to the facts. You like to shut people down before we get to the facts. And then when somebody starts talking about the facts, then all of a sudden we want to bow out. All of a sudden you don't know. See, this is the problem. I'm pulling you out of your emotionalism. I'm pulling you out of your emotional bias to say, okay, cool, I understand. No offense taken. Everybody gets riled up with this case, depending on their beliefs. That's cool. But you calling somebody names ain't gonna change the facts of the case. The facts are the facts. Period. Let's talk about the fact. You can't come in here and question my journalism. But when I ask you, okay, what about my journalism with the phone call? Oh, I don't know nothing about that because I wasn't there. Pamela, be quiet. You talk too much and too quick. Just be quiet for 2 seconds, please.
Around that, and the facts are just not true.
Well, the 911 call being digitally enhanced has been verified.
Well, that I cannot speak to. I was not there. But neither was the gentleman from the National Enquirer.
Oh, well, don't bet on it. But let me just tell you something. It's not just what we discover and what we say. You have to remember, you just had a detective who made over 250 investigative reports.
Come on.
Steve Thomas resigned from this case in absolute disgust. Here's a man who put his career on the line, took up his badge, slammed it down, and said, "That's it. I am sick of this district attorney. He is a witness for the defense."
Well,
Okay?
let me... yes, ma'am.
I believe that we should all be thankful for issues of the Inquirer, because certainly the police department or the family is not very interested in bringing this to justice. This is a little girl who has long since been gone.
Let me make something clear. Look, I am a journalist, all right? I mean, the outcome, I would be just as happy to do a story saying, wow, Ramsey's completely innocent. I would love to do that story, okay? I would love to. What?
And that's all I'm saying. When I present, it doesn't matter which way it goes. I don't care. I don't have a vested interest in this, of it needing to be the parents or anybody else. I don't care. Why? Because whatever way it goes, that just lets you know, okay, this is possible behavior over here to these people for this reason. People can and will go this far in this direction. We've seen it. We have case file for it. That's it. Me trying to make a statistic be true, like, that's weird. Oh, it's the family because the most of the statistics say it is. I have no reason. Nobody's paying me to make that true. No one. Nobody's talking to me on the side and saying, if you don't make this true, then it's a problem. Nobody's emailing me. If they are, I don't see the emails. But nobody's emailing me saying this has to be true. No one. So, like, what would be the point in me trying to push something for what?
We feel, all of us, I think, our feeling about what you're saying is that you seem to resent the fact that people are asking questions about why a little girl is murdered, and the parents will not just fully and freely come forward and answer any question anybody
Jane
wants to answer.
Stobie, you worked with this family. You are more convinced than ever, you say, of their involvement? Yes. Tell me why.
Part of it is a lot of the information that is coming out in the media, and also there are things that aren't happening. It's like they talk about another suspect and no one's been identified. And I think it's the silence on the part of the family, the lack of cooperation on the part of the family.
Well, we've heard that the suspect may be someone who was jealous. Now, Pam, tell me if I'm misspeaking. Jealous of...
Well, and again, you're looking at Jane Stobie, who at one point was an employee of the company, is no longer. I have never met the lady. I've never laid eyes on her. I do know that some of the things that she has second-handedly reported, such as photographs of JonBenet above her bed at the lake house, It is a falsehood. I have spent many a night in that house. I was there when the pictures of the Victorian umbrellas were hung above JonBenet's bed. And so there you have people. She even just admitted that she's relying on printed media and whatever's been out there to determine what is and isn't going on.
That the suspect may be someone who was jealous. Now, Pam, tell me if I'm misspeaking. Jealous of...
Well, and again, you're looking at Jane Stobie, who at one point was an employee of the company, is no longer. I have never met the lady. I've never laid eyes on her. I do know that some of the things that she has second-handedly reported, such as photographs of JonBenet above her bed at the lake house, it is a falsehood. I have spent many a night in that house. I was there when the pictures of the Victorian umbrellas were hung above JonBenet's bed. And so there you have people. She even just admitted that she's relying on printed media and whatever's been out there to determine what is and isn't going on. When the fact of the matter is, there is a very short list of suspects. They are being looked at. The information and the evidence is being tied and neatly woven together, and all avenues are being, as the justice system would relegate, all avenues are being searched.
Jane, respond to the profile of the suspects being someone jealous of the Ramseys, their success, their closeness as a family.
I found this really interesting because when I was working with the family, one of the things that her mother talked about is how people were so jealous of them. And it was so interesting, Pam, when I heard you on the phone, or heard a clip on the news from what you had said, that it was because people were jealous of the family, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, I heard this years ago, and now it's back again. And I think, well,
Pam, people are turning, it seems, on the family. Some very important people who've been close supporters for many, many months, including Fleet White, and Priscilla Brown White, where Patsy and John had dinner that Christmas Eve. He was with John Ramsey when the body was found. He wrote an open letter and said, the people of Colorado are entitled to be frustrated and angry with those public officials and other persons who have brought this case to its current status. We must be mindful, however, of the first cause of the investigation's failure, the refusal of John and Patsy Ramsey to cooperate fully and genuinely with those officially charged with the responsibility of investigating the death of their daughter.
That's your best friend. Who are we? Who are we to disregard his statement? This man came out unprovoked. We didn't tell him to do it. This man came out unprovoked and said, my best friend is not cooperating with the investigation. Our best friend is not cooperating with the investigation. Everything could have been, better on all fronts and all accounts, yada, yada, yada. We get all that. However, the beginning of this investigation began its downfall with our friends not willing to fully. You can say we cooperated, but Fleet said you didn't do it fully. That's what we're talking about. You can go begrudgingly, but not fully. That's what we're talking about. You can go kicking and screaming, leaving skid marks on the floor as you're being dragged, but you're not fully cooperating. We can sit you in the chair at the police station, but you sit there silent, only saying things here and there so we don't get the full story, broken bits and pieces, is not full cooperation. There's a discrepancy between our understandings here in what you guys think full cooperation is and what the rest of the world knows to be full cooperation. That is the problem. And Fleet is saying it started with you, because I think what's being missed in this entire thing is, again, it's not just one person saying this. It's several independent people near and far. I wanted to show you guys this and I forgot to do it. I was going to do this when I talked about Patsy and her 911 call, but I forgot. But I was looking at this the other day, and it's talking about JonBenét Ramsey, 911 operator, says Patsy's frantic call seemed rehearsed. This is coming from, bro, this is the first point of contact. Listen to me. You seem rehearsed from somebody that didn't even know you, and didn't even know what to expect from you. Cold turkey, straight out the gate, calling me. You seemed rehearsed. Cold turkey, straight out the gate. I don't know you. I'm prone to believe everything that comes over this phone line because I want to make sure people get the help that they need when they need it. But when you called, I'm listening to you, and something about what you did and what you said within a minute and 5 seconds, immediately. That's about how long that call lasted. Within a minute and 5 seconds from the time she answered to the time Patsy walked away from that phone, within a minute and 5 seconds, there was something that you did that made me think, this sounds rehearsed. So, which is why for those 3 seconds until Patsy, chimed back in and said, please, Kim was like lost almost. She got silent. And so 911 operator Kim Archuleta says her 99 or 96 call with Patsy Ramsey disturbed her. And this is People magazine, written by Leeza Gibbons, October 4th, 16, updated October 4th, 16. The woman on the other end of Patsy Ramsey's frantic December 96 911 call made after finding a ransom note for her 6-year-old daughter, JonBenet, spoke out for the first time in the premiere episode of CBS's The Case of JonBenét Ramsey Sunday. Kim Archuleta, the Boulder, Colorado 911 operator who took Patsy's call, detailed the dramatic phone conversation to investigators Laura Richards, a former Scotland Yard behavioral analyst, and Jim Clemente, a retired FBI profiler, who are digging into the case with a team of experts ahead of the 20th anniversary. This is the first time that anyone's asked for my opinion in 20 years, Archuleta said. I just remember having that sunken feeling, like something wasn't right. The problem was, if you hear the frantic in her voice when she's speaking to me, where she couldn't even answer my questions, it immediately stopped. And it did. That's what we showed in Patsy's video, or of the 911 call when we revisited. It just stopped out of nowhere. It just quit. She didn't answer questions, and then all of a sudden, just quit. Like she was trying to get to more questions. Hey, Patsy, stay with me. And then Patsy just like, hey, I'm done with this, and just walked off. That's weird. Okay, watch 5 clues that could reveal what really happened. She goes on to say, what bothered me immensely is it sounded like she said, okay, we've called the police. Now what? Explained Archuleta. This is what. And so we have all these things. Later on in the article, they say they're asking what was said. They're kind of asking what was said. We're not speaking to you. What did you do? Or what did you find? So this is what the experts who are trying to analyze this in 2016 on the CBS doc, which, they got sued for. This is what they're trying to assess. They're trying to figure out. But the person who originally took it said, okay, we've called the police. Now what? This is what it sounded like, explained Archuleta. And that disturbed me. So I remained on the phone. So it sounded like that's why we can thank her for staying for that long pause. That's why this is who we can thank, because she intentionally said, yo, something's not right. Like I thought, trying to listen to hear what you're saying. Thought I heard you say something weird. I thought I heard you say, okay, we called the police. Now what? Explained Archuleta. And that disturbed me. So I remained on the phone trying to hear what was being said. It sounded like there were 2 voices in the room, maybe 3 different ones. I had a bad feeling about this. To me, it seemed rehearsed. That's never changed. Later that day, JonBenet's body was found in the family basement with a garrote. Archuleta said that an investigator came to her home shortly after and told her that she had a gag order until charges were made. She was not contacted to testify for the grand jury, and after which DA Hunter said he wasn't going to do anything about it. And there were things being said that somebody needed to know, Archuleta told Clemente and Richards. It was never addressed. I think it would have really turned this case around. This is the one who took the call telling you something was off, something was wrong. This is the person, bro. you act like when people try to go off and be like, oh, how could you? How dare you? You people are sick. You people are disturbing. Oh my goodness. How could you think the family could do this? Bro, we're not alone. We are not making this up. The person who had the first contact ever with the family, with no indication that there was anything wrong, no sort of bias, said something ain't right here. Something about this seems rehearsed. And so since I thought something seemed rehearsed, I stayed on the line just to try to hear what was going on even more. Just to kind of try to hear what was being said and what was happening. You know who that sounds like? That sounds like Detective Whitson, who said, man, everything was fine until I looked at this ransom notepad. And then from there, that's when I stopped thinking about this being a kidnapping, and I thought that the parents might have something to do with it. Detective Linda Arndt said the same thing. Reporters from all over the place have been giving the same sentiments. And so we're getting a picture that a lot of people are, despite what you guys are trying to tell us about your family, we're getting a picture that from the outside world, there is something really wrong internally with this family. I remember Jane was saying something to the effect on another interview. She was saying something to the effect of she's heard some disturbing conversations from Nidra and I think Polly. But Jane wasn't the only one to say that. Judith Miller, who was Ramsey's close circle, met her in 1984 and played softball. You know, they raised kids together. Come on. This person who knows Patsy, grew up with Patsy, close, played softball team with a couple. She revealed that she was advised not to speak to police or reporters. Miller, who said she loved JonBenet very much, told Clementine Richards she felt, however, that speaking out would help. Opened my doors to reporters, talked to police twice. She explained, they just cut me off as a friend. Now, from what we saw when John mouthed to Patsy, something to the effect of, guard your babies or something like that. From what we saw when John mouthed that, John can't sit with everybody else and mouth or come up with, scripts that we need to stay on and get scripted interviews for everyone. You know how this thing works is if everyone's telling the truth. If there's no script, so things can just happen organically. You don't have lawyers coming in and saying, hey, John, as a friend of the family, would you allow me to do some things here that I think are necessary to be done? Would you allow me to do that? We don't have that, right? Because there's no need for people to slink up and then some sort of nonverbal wink and say, oh, yes, Mike. Absolutely. Do whatever. This man could have robbed you of $1 million and you said, do whatever you think is necessary. This man could have came back and demanded fees of $2 million for all of his services. And you could have been tied up with that. But with a nod and a wink, here we are. You can trust Mike, even trust your doctor to talk to Larry King, I think it was. But these other people who have sort of like a genuine interest to where we're not going to be stuck to a script. We're just going to talk about how we feel about JonBenet. And we're going to say, whatever I can do to help, I want to do. Those people are punished. Now, if it's somebody that says, oh, you guys need to stop looking at John and Patsy, you guys are the worst, how dare you, those people are rewarded. But for the people, and they can speak to whoever they want to speak to, but for those people who say, you know what, I just want to see this case solved. I want to find the person who did this because that little girl needs justice. Those people are villainized. That makes sense.
Leeza? Pam, was this hurtful? This open letter of key people in the Ramsey camp turning, was that hurtful to Patsy and John?
First of all, let me say this. Fleet White, I have not laid eyes on since the day of JonBenet's funeral, December 31st, here in Atlanta. Have not laid eyes on the man, and I have been back in Boulder and Denver several times since then. So he has not bothered to contact me or my family. He certainly has a right to his own opinion. I have not read the letter.
Pam, because they got in a fight at the funeral. That's why you wouldn't see him or be talking to him. They got in a fight because the letter and then he went and wrote the letter. Duh. Please connect it. My God. They got in a fight at the funeral. There was a blow up. Fleet was already upset that they weren't talking to the police and they weren't fully cooperating. So they got in a fight about it relatively early at the funeral. And Fleet was like, yo, I'm done with this. I'm already done. While your family is telling us that y'all are fully cooperating, Fleet is like, yo, you guys are not cooperating like you should. And John is like, oh man, ever since the police got a hold of him, he just changed. Well, okay. Well, why? What could have convinced him? John, what do you think it was? Let me guess. You don't know. You don't know anything. Or you don't remember. Got to be one of those two. So you jump on here. Let me tell you something. He hasn't bothered to contact us at all. Well, because they're mad at each other. And at this point, you're at odds and you're at different camps. There's been a line drawn in the sand. Pam, I don't know if you know how lines being drawn in the sand work. You step over it, you're with this camp. You stay on this side, you're with this camp. And if we can't talk about nothing, what are we talking about? If we can't agree, then what do we... It's more of this delusional thinking of that we're supposed to be playing patty cake, high-fiving and jumping on trampolines together when we're not friends. Why would y'all be talking? You're acting like the man just up and quit talking to you guys. No, they got mad at each other. It seems like you're out the loop because maybe your sister and your brother-in-law didn't tell you about the blow-up. Because as you mentioned, it was at the funeral. Right. So it seems like maybe your brother-in-law and your sister didn't tell you that they had a fight. Seems like you might be being manipulated to believe something that maybe they want you to believe.
That he has written, I have heard some people have said it's way out there, and other people have said right on, it substantiates the entire feeling of the state of Colorado.
Well, it does reflect a lot of frustration and concern that nothing is moving forward. But now that the grand jury is convening secretly, we know that something is up. And we've already heard from the experts who've analyzed the famous ransom note, every which way but loose. But there's a new way of looking at it now. What do the words reveal? Still to come, a well-known psychiatrist will read between the lines to uncover what he says are subliminal messages from JonBenet's killer. Some shocking conclusions, and we'll see you back here. Interview. She gave an interview to the Sentinel, a West Virginia newspaper, and in it she says, you can only...
You know it ain't gonna mean nothing. It ain't gonna mean nothing at all. Because to the Ramseys, any expert that does anything outside of them ain't an expert. Just gonna tell you that right now. Doesn't matter.
JonBenet's killer. Some shocking conclusions, and we'll see you back here. Interview. She gave an interview to the Sentinel, a West Virginia newspaper, and in it she says, You can only turn the other cheek for so long. It's not fair. We want people to know the type of parents we are. Geraldine Merritt, defense attorney, you say you're on the side of truth in this thing, but let's start with this comment, type of parents we are. I know the type of parent I think I would be. If anything happened to my kid, I know I would be all over the police. What can I tell you? Do you want to interview my dog? Do you want to put me under hypnosis? Do you want to analyze my footprints? Anything to get to the truth. And I think that's where we first began and where we're still stuck with this sentiment about the Ramseys. Okay.
But we the ones making things up. We don't understand. You know, we're being so harsh to the parents, and we got parents here talking and saying, yo, if it was me, anything. But yeah, we're armchair detectives who don't know anything, don't do any research, just don't do anything. Right. Yeah. Because parents right here telling you what they would do. Parents.
Sure. First of all, I'm not so sure. I wouldn't say I'm on the side of truth, although that would be nice. My client, if I have a client in this, is the presumption of innocence. I don't know who killed this child.
Okay,
I don't think anyone else did either. Now, that being said, it is another one of the media myths that the Ramseys did not cooperate. They were both interviewed on the 26th. One was interviewed on the 27th. They gave hair samples, saliva samples.
But
they gave
also
blood
gave
samples.
Conditions for those interviews.
No, wait a second. Not those original interviews. They did not. Their child was initially interviewed on that day. He was later interviewed by social services with the police watch not cooperate. They were both interviewed on the 26th. One was interviewed on the 27th.
I don't remember the 27th.
Gave hair samples, saliva samples.
But
they gave
also
blood
gave conditions
samples.
for those interviews.
No, wait a second. Not those original interviews. They did. Now, that being said, it is another one of the media myths that the Ramseys did not cooperate. They were both interviewed.
No. It's not a myth, because Fleet White, the one closest to the individual, is saying, yo, man, what's going on, bro? You're not cooperating. Is Fleet just making this up? The friends around are trying to cooperate with the cops, and the friends who are trying to cooperate with the cops and who are giving interviews are being cut off by Patsy and John. Why? Make it make sense. You did not cooperate fully and effectively. It's not that you didn't cooperate. We're saying that you didn't cooperate fully and effectively. Like Leeza said, hey, interview my dog, put me under hypno, anything you want to do, cut my toes off. Whatever. Ramsey didn't do. Oh, they gave her. Yeah, because we force you to give that to us. That's reasonable. I mean, shoot, even people who know they've killed someone give blood and DNA samples, and they know they've done it. they do that. Did you know that? They do that. They were like, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and then they return with it's like, yeah, we can clearly see that it's a match. I don't know how that could be. Because the DNA. So it's no coincidence, or it's not even a surprise, that Patsy and John fall in line. What are you going to do? Say no? How guilty would that make you look? I mean, I'm not trying to look totally guilty, but I have to cause some sort of distraction. I have to. Come on, that's irrelevant.
Interviewed on the 26th. One was interviewed on the 27th. They gave hair samples, saliva samples.
But
they gave
also
blood
gave conditions
samples.
for those interviews.
No, wait a second. Not those original interviews. They did not. Their child was initially interviewed on that day. He was later interviewed by social services with the police watching through a one-way mirror and able to suggest questions. They gave consents to search all of their homes. Last month, or within the last 2 months.
They got a warrant. The cops got a warrant to search the homes. What are you talking about? They got warrants to search the homes.
They were interviewed for over 40 hours by the district attorney's office on videotape with their lawyers present. There was not a single question they refused to answer. There was not a single topic they refused to discuss. Their child was also, again, interviewed. The reason they stopped cooperating early on was because, as the district attorney agreed, the police in this case rushed to judgment early on, would not look elsewhere, would only...
Oh, you're talking stupid. You are talking stupid. You are talking the dumbest I think I've heard anyone talk. They rushed to judgment early. How early? How early are we talking? We haven't even got out the gate. Who else would you gave us 160 people? Who else would we be looking at early? Like, we got to look at you early. Like, we haven't even exhausted everything with you. Who else would we be looking at? Bro, we got to look at you first to like rule you out before we. So are you saying that we need to be looking at 160 people simultaneously? That's what you're telling me? You realistically expect for me to be looking at 160 people and following up on every lead, calling people from, what kind of stupidity is that? Calling people from your HR to get names and all of that crap that you were doing on the day of? I had to call my HR. Hey, Sally, do you remember this guy that worked for us 3 years ago? And Sally's like, sure. I mean, we fired him for this. Yeah, could you look up what we fired him for? I got the police with me. John, what's this about? Oh, yeah, we're just trying to figure some stuff out. Like, do you expect him to realistically be looking up 160 people simultaneously for what? Why would we continue to go? See, and that's how you don't solve an investigation. You're mad because I wouldn't go down 160 different rabbit holes that you wanted to try to send me down. And I was like, no, that's not how an investigation works. We don't go down 160 rabbit holes simultaneously. Maybe with the help of AI now, we can do that. Maybe with AI, we can train systems to go down 160 rabbit holes. We can get, AI to be a robocaller to call people and collect information and record the information and come back and later analyze. So we can go back and be like, okay, we could spend over the next month listening to those 160, things and following up with questions that might be helpful and all such as that. Maybe now, but back then we don't have the capacity to do that. Why would you even ask any police department to do that? We got to rule you out first. What hurts me, what really hurts me is it's like you guys don't understand the fundamentals of an investigation. You tell me that you understand, like, needing to look at the family first after they told you that and explained. But then you're like, okay, now move on. We're not done investigating you yet. We haven't even started. Early on in the investigation, we haven't even started looking at you yet. We're still asking. And in the middle of me sending an interview with you, asking you questions, you're like, go find somebody else. Because in the interviews, when they were talking to Patsy, she was already mad and on edge. Bro, I just started talking to you. Go find him. He's somewhere out there. Clear evidence that you are not cooperating. So what you're talking about here is bullcrap. This is stupid.
Over 40 hours by the district attorney's office on videotape with their lawyers present. There was not a single question they refused to answer. There was not a single topic they refused to discuss. Their child was...
Define refused. Define refused, because you guys do a lot of this. Oh, there's no topic I won't discuss. There's no question I won't answer. You can dodge an answer by saying, I don't know. You can dodge an answer by saying, I don't remember. And we move on from that. We clearly saw that in the deposition. I don't know. I don't remember. I think so. Maybe. I can't tell you. That's you dodging the question. That's you dodging. You're dodging the question.
Was also again interviewed. The reason they stopped cooperating early on was because, as the district attorney agreed, the police in this case rushed to judgment early on, would not. The reason they stopped cooperating early on.
Treated unfairly. How? How, Geraldine? How have they been treated unfairly? Early in the investigation, listen to what you're saying. They got mad because the police targeted them early in the investigation. The key word is early in the investigation. The police targeted them at the very beginning of the investigation because by the statistics, most families are to blame. So therefore, early, we would be looking at the family, and you got mad because we were doing it early. Think about, and then you come and say stuff like this, treated unfairly. In what way?
Was because, as the district attorney agreed, the police in this case rushed to judgment early on, would not look elsewhere, would only investigate the Ramseys. Once the police set their sights on the Ramseys, they naturally had lawyers who said, let's slow down here and see what's going on.
Well, what about this 911 call? It indicates, if nothing else, that the Ramseys lied to the investigators. Why would they lie about Burke being asleep?
You're making a rather large assumption here. Number one, how do we know about a 911 call? Have the police confirmed it? What we know is that there's another example here of a police leak of information.
Mike,
many of them have been false. The Newsweek reported this week that over 15 people that listened to that tape did not hear anything of Burke Ramsey on that tape. And we don't know if the tape exists, and we don't know what's on it. And I would be the last one to want to speculate as to what it means. I will say this, the words that are on there are also equally indicative of innocence, of showing Patsy Ramsey just absolutely saying, oh my God, what now, what to do, she is frantic. You can take that either way, but I would caution anyone against speculating on evidence that comes out, not in courtroom, but in the court's public opinion.
You can't have it both ways. If it's indicative of Patsy's innocence, okay, then you're admitting the tape exists. And it is indicative that they lied about Burke being awake. Okay, well, it could be.
No, first of all, sir, you were not present at the 42 hours of...
Look, ma'am, like he said, this is where we got to catch you in real time. You talking out of both sides of your mouth, and I got to stop you right now. I really do. I have to, because I'm.
You can't have it both ways. If it's indicative.
Patsy Ramsey just absolutely saying, oh my God, what now, what to do, she is frantic. You can take that either way, but I would caution anyone against speculating on evidence that comes out, not in court, Burke Ramsey on that tape. And we don't know if the tape exists, and we don't know what's on it. And I would be the last one to want to...
We don't know if a 911 call tape exists? Geraldine. Do you not know how this works? We don't know if one exists, and you're getting mad. Okay, that it was leaked. Oh, most of the leaks have been false. Okay, but this one ain't, because this is a 911 tape, and I don't got to say nothing. I'm just going to let the tape play. And even to the point where now, apparently at this point in time, in 98, it's enhanced. We're just going to let the tape speak for itself. What are you talking about? Oh, it well, you know, you can't
speculate as to what it means. I will say this, the words that are on there are also equally indicative of innocence, of showing Patsy Ramsey just absolutely saying, oh my God, what now, what to do, she is frantic. You can take that either way, but I would caution anyone against speculating on evidence that comes out, not in courtroom, but in the court's public opinion.
You can't have it both ways. If it's indicative of Patsy's innocence, okay, then you're admitting the tape exists. And it is indicative that they lied about Burke being awake. Okay, well, it could be.
First of all, sir, you were not present at the 42 hours of interviews. You do not know what the Ramseys told the police. You are relying upon leaks by police officers, many of whom have since been fired from the investigation.
Many journalists and police investigators rely on leaks, lady.
There's another book out, not surprisingly, JonBenet's Mother, The Tragedy and the Truth. It's written by Linda Edison McLean. She is a longtime friend of the Ramseys. She wrote this book. You've been listening, right?
Right.
What's your reaction to what you've heard so far, and why you wrote this book?
Leeza, the reason that I wrote this book is exactly what's happening on your show right now. I hear audience members clapping when people say things about my friend that are not true, that they don't know. And I think what's wrong in America today is that we tend to take innocent people and attack them and destroy them. And we did it with, Richard Jewell in Atlanta. We've done it with other people. And we have got to stop, Leeza. We have got to stop using the media to destroy innocent people. And that's why we wrote this book, because here we are on the phone, because I don't want to come out there and sit on those shows. I'm nervous. I'm just a normal small town person, and I wanted to write down what I knew about Patsy and all of these friends and family members who know how wonderful she is. We just wanted to say that. That's all this book's about.
Fair enough.
I just want to address the fact that this happened the night after Christmas, and being a parent yourself, Leeza, I think you would know where your children are on a family holiday. I cannot believe that she couldn't find her 6-year-old daughter. She didn't know where she was.
Linda, well, she says she was kidnapped. That was the whole point.
Yeah, she just got a ransom note that said she was kidnapped. And yes, I have children, and I know how I would feel, and I would run around frantic, and I wouldn't remember every detail of everything that happened.
Did you wake up your child and ask what had happened to his sister?
Sir, I don't know what I would. Linda.
See. But I guess I'm just Monday armchair detectiving. I guess that's what I'm doing, because I'm just man that's trained in journalism saying the same thing. That's what I'm saying. Come on, this is common sense. Come on. But you believe what you want to believe.
Can you please stand by? We have so many questions for you. We also want to know about Patsy's frame of mind right now. Obviously, she feels a need to speak out, and we're glad that we're hearing from this side of the story. Also, a controversial point of view from a respected psychologist who believes that the words of that ransom note all do point to Patsy Ramsey. We'll be right back.
You don't like that. You don't like that at all. Because Linda just said, get up off my friends. But then the psychologist is going to come back and put more pressure on the friends? How dare you?
Dr. Scholl's next
psychiatrist who's written this book called A Mother Gone Bad. And he claims that the ransom note shows us that it was a woman who had cancer, and that it was, in fact, the mom. How on earth, you're sort of reading between the lines, psycholinguistics, is it called?
I am reading between the lines.
Okay, yes. Let's get the theory in a minute. First, tell us what you see that indicates this woman had cancer.
You know, I picked up the ransom note as a hobby, just looking at it to see what was between the lines, so I didn't really know anything about the case, came at it perfectly neutral. This is the best evidence we have about the case. Robert Ressler and others agree. You can't really contaminate this evidence, but this is what I saw. There's a particularly brutal part of the letter here, she dies, and then a key sentence. You will be scanned for electronic devices, and if any are found, she dies. Read that. You will be scanned for any defects, and if we find any, she dies. That is a perfect picture of a cancer patient going in for checkups.
Now, Patsy Ramsey was a cancer survivor, 4th stage ovarian cancer.
4th stage ovarian.
Huh?
And every 3 months she had to be scanned with a scanner, and it was going to tell if she had cancer, recurrence or not. Now, what you see following that is you want to look for other images of cancer. Let's see where the letter leads us. What you see is a 99% chance of killing your daughter. Survival percentages, 100% chance. Survival percentages. What we see here is constant scrutiny. Medical words. Over here, we will monitor you getting the money early. Somebody being monitored early. That's what scanning was about.
That is odd terminology, monitor you getting the money early.
It is.
Golly. Look, man. You know, that could be hodgepodge, pie in the sky science, but you got to write it down and be like, well, dang, you know, all of these things do have to do with cancer. I guess my only thing is, you know, how much did he know or not know? Truly, you know, because sometimes we see things and they get stored in the back of our mind, but you know, we don't really look at it until it becomes big enough. And so I think, you know, it's possible, you know, a devil's advocate might say that it's possible that, you know, maybe he saw something about it, stored in the back of his mind, just didn't really think about it until he saw something else. And then so he thinks he's coming at it neutral, but he's really not. Maybe he saw something about Patsy having ovarian cancer or something like that, and that kind of, jogged his memory to look for cancer, even subconsciously. I mean, that could happen. And psychologists and psychiatrists are not immune to sort of unconscious bias of any sort. So, but the fact that he's picking out I guess the thing for me is like the fact that he's picking out that language that is very strong medical terminology. And we do see things like the attaché and the French wording, and not just in the letter, but across JonBenet. Why didn't Burke get a French name? You know what I'm saying? Like, you got JonBenet and you got Jacques and you got attaché. Why didn't Burke get a French name? Because Burke got Burke Hamilton. I do not remember Burke Hamilton connected to anybody in the family tree. I have to go back and look. But I did recognize that John's mother's last name, her maiden name, was Bennett. And obviously his father's last name was Ramsey. And so it tells me a little bit about his mom, in that it's possible that she was a strong individual who was very independent and strong-willed, in that she wanted to carry on her own last name. And maybe in that day, if names could have been hyphenated, or if it was common for names to be hyphenated, she probably would have hyphenated the name for John, and she would have named him John, some other middle name, Bennett Ramsey. She would have done that. But maybe because back in that time, it was uncommon for names to be hyphenated, she just said, we'll give my last name to him as a middle name, and then give your last name to him as a last name, so that it can be JonBenét Ramsey, because I want my name to carry on too. And then that tracks down to JonBenet, but also JonBenet and Patsy, or John and Patsy, do the same thing that John's parents did. And they say JonBenet, and so because it's a girl, they wanted to sound more feminine, and so they say JonBenet instead of JonBenét. And so it's kind of like an ode to mom and keeping mom's name alive. But JonBenet Patricia Ramsey. So I get all of the names that are kind of wrapped up in, so I can keep my dad's lineage and I can keep my mom's lineage all wrapped up in one. But Burke gets Burke Hamilton. Now again, I don't remember off top that being connected with anybody in the lineage. But anyways, you're making some good points. I kind of like that. I'm not gonna lie to you. That to call that a cancer survivor.
We find any, she dies. That is a perfect picture of a cancer patient going in for checkups.
Now, Patsy.
Yeah, the 99% and the 100%.
Ramsey was a cancer survivor, fourth stage ovarian cancer.
Fourth stage ovarian. And every 3 months she had to be scanned with a scanner, and it was going to tell if she had cancer, recurrence or not. Now, what you see following that is you want to look for other images of cancer. Let's see where the letter leads us. What you see is a 99% chance of killing your daughter. Survival percentages, 100% chance. Survival percentages. What we see here is constant scrutiny.
Yeah, that chance word really carries it.
Medical words. Over here, we will monitor you getting the money early. Somebody being monitored early. That's what scanning was about.
That is odd.
Yeah, the monitoring early for cancer. Yeah. Because cancer was a big impact on Patsy's life. It was such it had such a big effect on, because we talk about, I think, this sort of psychological reversion, maybe to a time that was good, or maybe to a time that really shaped your being, that really shaped who you are that sort of psychological reversion. And I think that was, something for Patsy. It would have been something else. But when cancer came, then that really just radically shifted and gave her a new perspective. She talked about in the Women's Magazine article how all of a sudden, I changed the way that I looked at life. I was getting up every morning. I was appreciating life. I was appreciating making lunch for my kids, and I was doing all such as that. And I was enjoying being involved with my kids' school and stuff like that. So that reversion back to cancer during this time could have definitely played a part, because your mind is it's going fast. I'm writing. So if Patsy wrote this, then it's possible. And you're using this terminology because in a way, you got to realize Patsy, why would Patsy write like this? Well, Patsy was a good technical writer. She got into competitions and won competitions doing this. And so she knew how to write eloquently using sort of eloquent language. And even though she tries to misspell business and possession, it's to no avail, because as the doctor's pointing out, this is very professional and specific field language. And so by trying to sound dumb, you don't know how to sound dumb. So you actually end up sounding smart, because you realize I don't talk dumb. I talk smart. So I don't know any dumb language. I don't know any. Yeah. I'm not out here talking about foolishness every day. So I don't know any language that would be indicative of anything stupid. Even because you didn't, if you're going to misspell something, even if you're going to misspell something, that should carry out through the rest of the letter, especially if this is 3 pages. That should carry out through the rest of the letter. But you start hitting these specific medical terms, and it's like, what did you say? What did you? So you're, first of all, second of all, what kind of foreign faction is this? This is a foreign faction that can write good English or cannot write good English. This is a foreign faction that can speak good medical terminology and is highly educated, or cannot speak any of this secondary education language and is not highly educated. What are you trying to make me believe here? I'm confused.
Terminology, monitor you getting the money early.
It is.
Geraldine, of course, thinks
because there's so much monitoring, scan, chance, survival, machine, device. There's so much specific terminology. Are you somebody who doesn't really like school, so you left school and never looked back? Or are you somebody that loves school? I guess that's what I should ask. You somebody that loves school, you love, because especially when you get up, to the PhD level and stuff like that, and the MD level, when you take some of these things like the GMAT, and the GMAT is well, I guess you can do the GMAT for business PhDs, but the GMAT, the GRE for like the social sciences, the LSAT for lawyers, the MCAT for people in the medical field, and so many other things. When you start doing all of these entrance, and exit exams and stuff like that, the bar exam, all of those things, these qualifying exams, they want you to learn all of these words. Now, if you're lucky enough to make good grades enough to get away from having to do that for whatever program that you go to, not necessarily the bar, but like maybe the LSAT or the GMAT or the GRE, if you're lucky enough to have a high enough GPA to get away from having to learn all of these big words, and that's one thing. But if you are not, and I know Ivy Leagues have this very high standard prior to COVID, this very high standard of having to not only take the GRE but score really high on the GRE, which means that you got to know these words and you got to read all these crazy passages, and you got to pick out these different things within these crazy passages. So when you start getting up into this, they want you to know these words specifically, because it's just the perception of what they think, people with these degrees should have, or how they should speak and stuff like that. That's just a perception. But Patsy is not a PhD, and neither is John. Well, John is a master's degree student. He is a master's degree holder. So I don't know if they had the GRE when John was coming through, but who knows? Or the GMAT when John was coming through, or what other standardized exam to get to the next level. But the point is that there was a certain way that you should be when you get to these levels. There was sort of a distinction. I think nowadays people are breaking those distinctions because they're like, I don't really want to do all that. I don't want to act like that. I don't want to be like that. I just want the knowledge, and that's it. But whoever was writing this letter had heard or come in contact with this kind of terminology on an extended basis to be able to use it regularly. And so you're throwing me back and forth. And I'll revise my earlier pathway. I'll say it's not necessarily using stupid language. And what I mean by that is more so, I guess, if you're thinking about a ransom note and you're writing the ransom note, you might be like, hey, stick them up. Stick them up, don't anybody move, you know what I mean? Or we're going to tear this thing to smithereens. And it's just like, what? Shut up. That's stupid. But and it's not going to be complicated. You know what I mean? There's no there's no like complexity to it. It's just, hey, put your hands up. I'm not playing with you. Don't play. It's when I think of stupid, I think of Home Alone. I think of Home Alone, the first one. These guys, look, I'm just here to rob houses. I'm just here to steal people's stuff. That's it. Think of those guys from Home Alone 1. Sit down and this is what I'm saying. Think about those guys from Home Alone 1 sitting down at a table and writing a ransom note. What would they write? We're the wet bandits. Stupid. But here we don't have the wet bandits. We have somebody saying, you have all this medical terminology. It wouldn't be, oh, and we want we want it. Oh, what do we want? We want a fruitcake, and we want $30 million. Yeah. And if you can't get it to us by what should we say? Noon tomorrow, and bring it to us in a big briefcase, and bring it on the dock. Yeah, I always wanted to be on the dock. If they're not using in this ransom note that kind of language, they're using very specific highly skilled professional terminology.
This is all bogus.
Of course.
Well, I think this book belongs on the fiction shelves, not the nonfiction shelves. But also, these same words have to do with, you're talking about electronic monitoring, scanning. How about somebody in prison? How about somebody that is used to electronic gates and wearing electronic monitoring bracelets?
Mike,
how many people have cancer? Only Patsy Ramsey?
Didn't I tell you? Didn't I tell you? Didn't I tell you? This man is a trained doctor. This man is a trained doctor, and it's just hodgepodge science. On the other end, you as a lawyer, we should listen to you, right? Because you feel they were treated unfairly. We should listen to you. Woman, please.
Of anything, but let me just point out something that has always intrigued me. Up there it says, we represent a small foreign faction. Later on in the letter, perhaps you could point it out, sir, it says, use your good Southern common sense. That is a phrase that Patsy Ramsey, according to friends that we spoke to, used over and over again. Abu Ben Abi of the Islamic Jihad does not use language like that.
He made it funny, but that's a good point. That's the point I was asking earlier. I was like, somebody from a foreign faction would not write good Southern common sense. They're not going to do it. They don't know the difference between the North and the South. They don't care. They got their own intercountry relationships to be worried about what you got going on over here. That would have to be somebody that came over here and studied and say, so what's going on with this North-South thing? They don't know just because they don't know. That would have had to be somebody who was from a foreign place, came over here, spent a good amount of time, enough to learn the difference between West Coast, East Coast, North, South. They would have had to come over and spend some time and learn that and pick up on that. Probably would have taken at least 2 years to pick up on that. Not only that, but to pick up on the English to express that. Oh, but they got so good at expressing themselves, but then they just misspelled those 2 words. I'll bet.
You say there are words, Doctor, that are used throughout this note that indicate it was authored by a woman.
Remember, we're looking for a motive, and we want to know how could a nice person like Patsy Ramsey commit this crime. Being burdened by the terror of cancer is one reason, but we also see here a preoccupation with delivery, and notice here, delivery is crossed out. This is a picture of Patsy Ramsey's devastation by cancer. Her delivery, her ability to give birth as a woman was crossed out. And I think she's showing us this. Now, if we look other images, and we could go into how this is a woman's handwriting, this has a woman's tone to it, 2 gentlemen, proper burial, but we'll see there's a symbol of a woman, a valuable container. Now, what we see here is the bank. Something's being withdrawn out of a bank. This moves down to a bank account. It comes down to an attaché. It then comes down to a brown paper bag. All of these are symbols of a woman, a nest egg, the uterus within. Patsy Ramsey's uterus within had been withdrawn. That's what she's trying to tell us. And I think she's trying to say, listen, I was a damaged woman. You have 2 central thoughts, a damaged woman damaged by cancer, and you have cancer. And so this is telling you that whoever the killer is, it's a woman who is severely damaged, probably by cancer. Now that's where the letter leads, right there. There's another point that what happened that night. But that's the motive.
Okay, let's talk about the point about what happened that night. Right. Also, the doctor says that there were clues throughout Patsy Ramsey's writings that indicated this moment was coming, was a boiling point, that something in her subconscious knew that she would harm her child. Fascinating to me. We'll take a quick break, and coming up, this investigation does go before a secret grand jury any day now. Are we getting closer to the truth? Be right back with you. Ransom note. Let's just have you guys jump in and rattle on. And Doctor, your other points, we want to get to those, but first some questions.
I want to know, what about the allegations of abuse? Supposedly this young lady was young period of time, and you mean that the parents didn't know?
Is there indication of that in the note?
You know, there is. We've just gone over, there are two motives in a crime. A deep pain the killer's carrying around, and a trigger motive. Now, something in this case, if Patsy Ramsey is the murderer of this child, something powerful had to happen that night. Something powerful happened anyway, but we've seen two things.
Well, let me just interject here. There's been speculation, and we were talking about it during the break, that Patsy Ramsey walked in on John Ramsey, perhaps child,
right.
Instead of going after the husband, which may seem the common thing to do. Perhaps the speculation is that Patsy's jealousy of her daughter was so great that that was the option that she took.
Liz, I think this is where she lost control, and I think she shows us this in the letter. Just a couple of things, interesting things. A small foreign faction. We represent a small foreign faction. What is JonBenet but a small foreign entity? We go down here with attaché, accent on the seventh letter. JonBenet's accent with the seventh letter, attaché and JonBenet. Just some interesting parallels. But the last night, notice here, if you stand back from the letter and you say, where is the chaos in this letter? Where do you see the writer showing you a moment of chaos? You would go right here to delivery. Now notice what else you see. You see a period totally out of place. I call that a psychotic period. This is telling us when she lost it. Now notice what the word is next to it. Delivery is crossed out. JonBenet is turned into a pickup. Pickup being made into one word, not two. One word, it's another slip. And I think she's saying, this is the moment I lost control. I think Patsy Ramsey went over the edge.
When she saw JonBenet as what?
I think that she stepped into something about what was going on. I think that's when she lost it. I think that's in the letter. And if you'll notice, immediate execution of your daughter immediately follows that. That's when she lost control. And I think that was the trigger motive. Two motives, trigger motive, deeper motive, and that was the trigger.
Are people taking your analysis seriously?
Well, my colleagues are. My colleagues who understand how the mind works, and there's been a breakthrough in how the mind works. We all have this genius subliminal mind, and the mind picks up on clues, and it tells us things indirectly through pattern stories.
Linda, are you still standing by? Have you heard what the doctor has said?
I have.
You must have an opinion.
Well, you know, I watch people who analyze their body language. I watch experts who talk about an autopsy they've never seen. I hear a man talking about attaché and JonBenet. It hurts me so bad when people, in my opinion, make these things up and dig these.
I'm not talking about your feelings. I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear what hurt you. I don't want to hear what broke your left toe. I don't want to hear what bent your leg backwards and why you had to stay in bed all day under doctor's orders. I don't want to hear why your spouse had to bring you hot tea, and chicken noodle soup. I don't want to hear any of that. If this would have been anything else, my son is having a psychotic breakdown. What can you do for me, Doc? If he would have came up and said, well, one of the reasons from what we've seen in your son's writing is that he needs to do this, that, and the third, and then blah, 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 and we need to do this, you would have listened. And you would have completely taken what he said. He said, and even Patsy and John, they would have been like, well, the doctor said, and they would have been happy to pay the money. A guy like this time would have been expensive. Would have been expensive to hire or to go into his office and get this kind of analysis on your child or on a family member. It would have been expensive. They'd have gone in there, and because they're high class, they have money, they're going to pay that. They would have paid that, and they would have been happy about paying it. And then he would say, well, the doctors, there's this new thing, that they do, that, they psychoanalyze your body, something like that. And this is how Patsy would have said it. they psychoanalyze your body, and they do something. I don't know what it is. How she was talking in the lie detector interview, and they psychoanalyze your body, and basically they do all these things, and they come out with a result, and from there you would have listened. But when we get to talking about real solid facts of why a psychiatrist would say this about Patsy, now the thing about the delivery and losing it and a breaking point and all such as that, I do believe that there is a breaking point within the letter. I do believe that. I do believe, and like the doctor says, I do believe that the mind is creating patterns. We all see things differently. And you notice that sometimes when you dream, your dreams are different. And you dream in certain ways and in symbols and in things that mean something to you because your mind understands or interprets things differently. And so you might see a yellow cup in your dream. Well, you might say to yourself, well, mom always, showed me a yellow cup, or I used to, mom would always make me drink out of a yellow cup. Well, it might be then, if I'm seeing a yellow cup constantly showing up in a dream, it might be associated with something that is a deeply held belief. So there's something that is centered around my deeply held belief around something. And then I might see something like maybe like a lampshade or something like that that's damaged or something like that. And, somebody might have a damaged lampshade or something like that. And so I'm looking at some sort of deeply held belief that is paired with a damaged lampshade. And so that could indicate that there's some sort of light or some sort of light that has been damaged, or something that has come to my knowledge that is making me question a deeply held belief. And I'm like, well, dang, and so that is coming through in my dream. And if I wake up, I might come to the knowledge that there are certain things as I live my life and I experience the world, there are certain things about the world that I see differently from what my parents taught me. And I am just now starting to embark on sort of fully allowing myself to experience those things. So this getting into this sort of biased way of thinking and trying to pull down the doctor's analysis with nonsense of, I just can't take you talking about, I don't want to hear that. That's what the Ramseys have been doing. That's why we're talking in circles like this, because the Ramseys are saying, how dare you look at me as a suspect, because that's not nice. That's mean. And then Lynn Wood in the deposition saying, that's not Southern, that's not, what did he say? That's not Southern hospitality or something he said like that. That's not good Southern manners. Well, Darnay was from New York. What would he know about Southern hospitality and Southern manners? And then, you got a lawyer from New York with a lawyer from the South, from Georgia, basically arguing over about what we do in the, look, being from the South and living in the North, it's different. People do things differently. It's different. Like, and you can be a Southerner looking at all the different things that Northerners do. And it's just like, this is weird. You guys drive different, So I don't care about any other bias that you have going on and how you want me to perceive or how you want me to accept or not go into things because you feel like it's not Southern hospitality or good Southern manners. I don't care about any of that. I don't care about protecting your feelings. I don't care about any of that. I care about getting down to the facts of the case. That's where I'm at, period. And that's been the narrative with John Ramsey, Patsy Ramsey, and their camp. and trying to get people to just go off of their feelings. And that's mostly what you see when people comment. It's just off of their feelings about how could you? You're disgusting. Okay, what about the facts, though? What about the facts do you disagree with? Nothing. You're just disgusting. That's it. Oh, so you really don't have a legitimate claim against me. It's just you're upset that I did this. Okay.
Things up about somebody that I know with every ounce of my being is a wonderful,
the FBI profiling unit a unit that just makes things up? Of course, there are things.
The
in human
FBI
behavior
profiling unit has not come out and said that JonBenet was ever night of the murder. In fact, her pediatrician has said that there was no. No one has found prior.
At least 4 times, which other experts say is abnormal for a child that age.
All right, Linda, let's take a break. We'll come back. We'll talk about this. They also said JonBenet was soiling herself in the months preceding the murder. Did you know your friend to be someone who could reach a point and just snap, Linda? A lot of questions still ahead. We'll be right back. Ruth is on the phone.
I was just curious if you've asked Patsy who she thinks killed her daughter.
No, I haven't. I really haven't.
Why haven't you?
You see what I mean? Why haven't you? Like, why wouldn't you ask that? Like, are we even trying to solve a murder here? Why wouldn't you ask that? Who do you, bro, these are basic questions. Who do you think? You wrote a whole book defending someone and you haven't even asked who they thought murdered their child? What? John, did you look at the autopsy report? No. Patsy, did you look at the autopsy report? No. Are y'all looking at police reports? No. Are y'all looking at expert handwriting analysis? No. Are y'all going to take a lie detector test? Maybe. But for right now, no. Always a step behind and a second too late. No, no, no. I don't know. Don't know. Not sure. Don't remember. Can't say for sure. You don't know. What's your favorite snack? Pertaining to what? What do you like to eat the most of? I don't know. What is your favorite drink? I should sit here for a couple of seconds to make you think that I'm truly thinking about something to say. I'm going to sit here for 5 minutes and I'm going to respond to you. I don't know. What is the thing that you most love about spending time with your mom and dad? I don't know. And this is how we can get an investigation where you tell me that you've answered every question or you've not turned down anything. You did.
No one's asking the key question.
Her sister didn't ask her either. Why haven't you? If you're such a good friend, why didn't you ask her?
I think that probably the detectives and police and DA have asked her that. We don't talk about it because it is so painful. One time I said to her, sitting on her back,
Linda, you've known Patsy over a number of years. There's a theory.
But you saw this sort of the entire crowd just groaned. Am I making them groan? No. This is the crowd saying collectively that is bullcrap. Collectively. This is not about armchair detectives. This is about people saying, did you ask this basic question? Well, no, I think the police are asking them that question. Yeah, but if you are to help your friends solve anything, I think I would ask my friend, I understand the painful part. I understand that. It's painful to talk about. I get that. But I guess my question would come more in the form of not talking about it directly, but talking about it in a roundabout way. So I wouldn't say, who do you think killed your daughter? I would not say that. I would say, who do you think could have done this? Why do you think people would have done? Because I want to help. If you don't ask questions, you can't help. But you don't want to help, do you? Because you're not interested in getting down to the bottom of it. You're more interested in protecting or supporting, comforting your friend. You're more interested in just, oh, child, I don't know what happened in that, but I'm just going to look the other way. Girl, that was a whole mess. Yeah, girl, did you see what happened? This and that. Girl, And nobody ever asks any questions, but you have your theories, but you won't tell me your theories because you don't want to make it seem like you're going against your friend whom you love. I'm not trying to make you not love your friend. I'm not trying to make you not like or bring a claim against your friend. I'm just trying to ask you, okay, if you were a parent, what would you do? Number one, if you were in this case, and number two, why are you not asking the questions to get to the... If you're not asking questions, then are you really looking for the girl? If you're not asking questions, then you don't know where to look. And in fact, if that's the case, because I know you ain't looking, you sitting up under Patsy all day. You sit up under Patsy, writing a book to help her, comfort her, and support her in that case. You sit up under Patsy, who's out actually. Are you looking for JonBenet? How could you? Where would you be looking? You're not looking anywhere. Why? Because you don't have any evidence or facts to go off of. So you can't look anywhere. I'm going to be honest with you. That's a terrible friend. Because if my friend lost or their child was missing, people, even community members who don't even know the neighbors, help put out signs on the telephone poles for a missing child. And they help and they go out into the fields in search parties and post on Facebook, on the internet. Even strangers who are lightly acquainted with their next door neighbor do that. Y'all ain't even asking no questions. Y'all just laid up in the big chair in the house, crying your days away. Yeah, but is anybody gonna try to...
That maybe she just lost it, went temporarily insane, according to the psychiatrist, and snapped. Does that seem reasonable to you, that could happen?
Okay, we've known her. I've known her for 25 years. People write in this book who have known her for every year of her life, and yet you're telling me for one night, not just Patsy, but John, both of them became insane on one night of their life. Never before, never after have they shown any tendencies to do this, but one night they both snapped.
40-something odd years old.
Suddenly and became insane.
You don't know her your whole life.
I mean, no. If you read this, these people know her, they know them, and they know that couldn't have happened. And
Dr. Hodges says that not only, in his view, did it happen, but that there was an indication that it was going to happen. What in Patsy Ramsey's prior communications indicate to you that she knew a moment of truth would evolve in her life regarding her daughter and potential harm?
I think you have to look at her other letters, and you have to match, do the thought prints match? And we would look at her 96 Christmas letter. We see the same preoccupation with femininity, damaged femininity. And in that Christmas letter, she talks about being replaced, or she hints at being replaced. She talks about, again, a container, a boat. John Ramsey has a real love. John Ramsey has a new, old-looking boat. Read, young, old-looking boat, a young woman made up to look old. I think she's picking up that there was something going on with John and JonBenet, and this led to an explosion. And if you read the letter, I think it's quite striking. There's no question in my mind that she knew in caprices the child was soiling her pants. There was tension rising in the home. JonBenet was picking up on it.
And I may disagree to the direction of the chaos, but I agree that there was tension rising in the home. There was sort of like this sort of climactic point coming to where things had to explode. I disagree to who was the culprit of that, but I'm on the same page with him in terms of when we write, and because I am a firm believer, when we look at that ransom note is, and I will say, I did not do an analysis quite as eloquent as that. But I will say that the ransom note is telling you something very specific when it pokes at certain things, when it's pushing at certain things. Like when I was saying, my main focus or main takeaway was that it's paying a lot of attention to not only John, but at the very end, it's starting to poke at John. It's starting to chide, it's starting to elbow John, right, John? You're doing this right. Use that good Southern common sense, John, huh? Don't be smart, you're not the only fat cat in town. It's very antagonistic at the end. Why is it antagonistic at the end? I don't know. It's very weird.
The lady on the phone seems to think it's odd that, they would just snap all of a sudden. I mean, people snap. I mean, look at the people that kill kids, just come into, they snapped.
Well, if there's a big family secret that they're keeping, like something like, no, Geraldine has never been proven, but if there's a secret like that, if Burke has a secret like that, if Patsy's holding that over John's head and John's holding the murder over Patsy's head, just going with what the speculation is, that's a lot of psychological burden.
We found him with 3 witnesses at a porn shop in Denver 3
Not
weeks
true, and the
after
District
murder.
Attorney of Boulder has filed a motion to unseal a search warrant affidavit saying they have found 0 evidence of John Ramsey's link.
Linda
And for that
Hoffman
reason, he
Few, the
wanted it
housekeeper, on the
unsealed.
record, said that Patsy had told her over and over again that she did not enjoy books that would help her in this. There were things going on in that house that bear examination.
Well, a lot of questions out here. I'll get to them right after the break. Give me a couple minutes.
On the telephone and just to everyone in general, I don't care how long you know someone, 25, 30 years. I don't care how many books have been written, and it seems like most people are capitalizing on this poor child's death. I don't see any love between those two people. Every segment that I've seen on TV, they're not hugging each other, they're not consoling each other, no one's crying. It seems like there's no love in this family and that it's falling apart. And as far as that letter is concerned, to me, it makes no sense that a person that wants money wouldn't ask for such a small amount, and they wouldn't write such a long letter. Yeah. None of this makes any sense to me. Makes no sense that a person that wants money, no one's crying. It seems.
Patsy was crying. Early on, I will say that, as we saw, Patsy was crying. I think Patsy was really broken. I think at some point in time, though, I think when the initial shock hit, I think they were crying. But as they sort of, learned how to conduct themselves. They quit crying and they more so stood on a united front of, we're not going to go out here and cry and boohoo about it. We're just going to go out here and we're going to fight these people, because, you know, you become united under a cause, because if you're overly emotional, you might slip and say something that you don't need to say. You might slip and you might sort of go a different direction than you were supposed to go. I'm supposed to be saying that keep your babies close, but I get to the point and I say keep your babies, and I lose it and I say, you know what? I can't do it no more. This is what happened and we can't. And then all of a sudden we're on national television, and then the news headline is mom breaks out and admits this, that, and third. And now we're trying to, the lawyers coming all over TV trying to hold Patsy down and trying to, you know, cover her mouth. And, you know, I'm going to be talking to my client, and my client was under extreme state of duress. And CNN, you knew what you were doing when you were asking her these questions. She never should have been asking questions. She was under medical, you know, she was under medical attention. Now they got to get doctor's notes and all such as that. And you don't want that. So Patsy was crying, but, you know, at some point in time, they had to get it together. And I think that's probably why that kind of went away, because they had to unite to protect something, you know, to make sure that we're on the same page.
Seems like there's no love in this family and that it's
suppression,
falling apart. And as far as that letter is concerned, to me, it makes no sense that a person that wants money wouldn't ask for such a small amount, and they wouldn't write such a long letter. Yeah. None of this makes any sense to me.
Let me go first to Linda about the affection question. You know, we've applied a lot of our need to see the Ramseys in a certain way. We want them to grieve a particular way. We want them to be affectionate in a way that makes us feel like they're not guilty. Now, none of that is really our right. But it is sort of the public opinion that we haven't seen that. What have you seen about your friends with affection?
Well, they are affectionate, Lisa. I have seen Patsy cry and sob. We have sobbed together because we've both lost people. Whether they do it publicly or not, I don't know, but I know they do it in private. They're real people, they're good people, and I don't know how else to say it. You know, obviously everybody there has made up their mind, and all I can tell you is I know the truth. I pray that someday you will too.
That is not true. What we are asking for, if it was me,
say it. You know, obviously everybody there has made up their mind, and all I can tell you is I know the truth.
That reminds me, this look reminds me of Nadra so much. Yo, that's crazy.
I pray that someday you will too.
That is not true. What we are asking for, if it was me, if it was Lisa, or if it was you, lady, we would have been indicted by now. At least an indictment, and let's examine the evidence.
No indictment now. There has been no indictment, first of all, because the police and the district attorney have both come out and said there is insufficient evidence with which to charge anyone with a crime.
But if there's a grand jury, Marilyn, doesn't that indicate that something's moving and grooving?
No. The reason that there is, first of all, in Colorado, grand juries are used for investigative.
Ooh, that is old terminology. Moving and grooving. Yeah.
Purposes, not necessarily to charge. If there are witnesses who refuse to come forward voluntarily, a grand jury can subpoena them and compel them to testify. For example, Fleet White is one of the people who was going to receive a subpoena or received one because he has refused to be interviewed by the district attorney's office. There are other people like that. That is the reason to have a grand jury, but it does not mean that anyone will ever be charged.
But once she's really telling you the truth, this could be a total whitewash. Believe me.
Gotta go, right back. Tragedy. Thank you, everybody. Yes, sir.
You know, what everybody's struggling with is facing Patsy Ramsey's shadow side, which everyone has. We see the motives, terror, envy, fear, and you know, Patsy Ramsey was a burdened woman, and she wants us to know it from this letter. Imagine a mother who loves her child, the most surprised woman in America. Her child is unconscious before her. Do you get her help or not? Their life is ruined at that moment in time. Then what happens? We see at the crime scene, the final crime scene, a mother who loves her child, a blanket, a drawing in the palm of the left hand, I love you, and the nightgown. These parents love their children, and they're
absolutely. And that's what I'm saying. These parents love their children, right? And that's it. These parents love their children, which is why you would see care taken on JonBenet. I'm still a little confused about the blanket, though. Still a little confused about that. But at any rate, that's why you would see care taken for JonBenet in the way. I do think that Patsy was, I don't know. From all instances I've seen, John really loved Patsy. Now, what that may have looked like, it may have looked like neglect, but sometimes when you have a business like that, when you have a businessman like that who's out making money for his family, he cannot keep up everything. And so it's like, I can't tend to my wife like I need to because I'm out trying to make money, you know. So and without somebody to say, hey man, you need to tend to your wife, man, you need to take care of your wife, you know, they just don't, because you think you're making the woman completely happy by providing, and that's not all there is to a relationship. Just providing is great, it's providing is a key thing, but it's like, you know, we were best friends before this, you know, we talked, so, you know. And I think men struggle with that. So that could have been John's issue, but at the same time too, with the thing like Patsy not actually liking to do it, possibly, I don't know. And I don't know Patsy's life, you know, she could have preferred not to. I don't know what that was. I don't know what that had to do with. I don't know if it's true or not. You know what I mean? Like, again, like these things, I can't confirm those things, you know. Doesn't matter. I mean, sure, that can help you in your analysis of Patsy, but I don't think it had anything to do with JonBenet. I don't think that it was targeted to JonBenet, because JonBenet was all Patsy ever wanted. But anyways, I would have also liked to see a little bit more from Scobie. I would have loved that. But anyways, that's the video. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. And until next time, take it easy.